Dr. Oat, thank you so much for the time today.
Good to be here.
Now, the new report from the Australian Institute of Health and Welfare shows that dementia now accounts for nearly 1 in 10 deaths in the country. How does this compare with what we're seeing in Canada?
Well, firstly, that is a very powerful statistic, and it does mirror a little bit of the problems that we have here in Canada. Dementia for us is also one of the leading causes of death, and its impact is actually growing quite rapidly. So, as of January 2025, over 770,000 Canadians are living with dementia. But what's even more striking is that mortality burden that we're seeing here. So dementia is almost 2% of all of our deaths in Canada, which is of course lower than Australia's 10% figure, but still very concerning. More than 400 Canadians develop dementia every day. And what we know is that by 2050, we're going to see about 1.7 million people in Canada who are projected to be living with this condition. To give you an example of what that means, that's like saying 29 new diagnoses every hour for dementia. So dementia isn't something that just affects memory. It's a progressive and terminal illness, and that can really impair mobility, swallowing, and immune dysfunction as well. So for Canada, the numbers may not yet match Australia, but we're seeing that trajectory is very steep, and there's going to be profound implications for us as well.
And why do you think that dementia has become such a significant cause of death, particularly in older adults and in women?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And really the answer is biological and societal shifts. So the first strongest factor here is age. Canada's population is aging rapidly, and by 2030, 1 in 4 Canadians are going to be over 65. And now we will have longer life expectancy. Now we're averaging at 82 years. But what we are seeing is because it's a progressive issue, we are going to have more people with dementia in general. When we look specifically at women, what we find is 2/3 of Canadians living with dementia are women. And that's because, for many reasons, really, women tend to live longer than men as well. But there's also hormonal changes, especially in the drop of estrogen after menopause. So that's going to play a role here as well. There's also a diagnostic bias where women may be more likely to seek help for memory concerns. And there are social determinants of health, including income and caregiving roles and stress, which can oftentimes disproportionately affect women's brain health over time.
And do you mind explaining what dementia is and how it's different than Alzheimer's disease? Because many people do confuse this as the same thing.
That's correct. So there is a bit of confusion with this. So dementia is not a single disease. It's an umbrella term really to describe a group of symptoms that affect memory, thinking, behavior, and the ability to perform everyday tasks. So these are progressive issues, meaning it gets worse over time and can be life-limiting. Now, Alzheimer's disease is the most common cause of dementia, so it accounts for about 60 to 70% of all cases. But there are other forms of dementia we know as well: vascular dementia, Lewy body dementia, and frontotemporal dementia, each having different symptoms and underlying brain changes as well. So another way of looking at it is dementia is like saying you have a fever, and Alzheimer's is one of the possible reasons why you might have it as well. And so overall, what the concern here is we need to crucially understand what type of dementia the person has. And that way we can research that particular one and look at causes and options and treatments for each of them specifically.
Now, I want to go back to the report because it also notes that nearly 99,000 new dementia diagnoses is in just 1 year among Canadians aged 65 and up. Now, are we seeing a genuine rise in dementia cases, or are we just getting better at diagnosing dementia?
That's a great question. And I think the answer is both. What we're seeing here is a real rise in dementia cases, driven by a lot of demographic shift as we get older. But we're also improving our ability to detect and diagnose the condition earlier and more accurately. So as you mentioned, we're seeing 99,000 new cases or diagnoses among Canadians after the age of 65. So about 270 new cases every day. So that's a genuine increase in prevalence, not just detection. And also what we're going to see is that increase in population again, that rise is going to be one of the strongest factors that's going to push the number of dementia cases we have. At the same time, we've got better diagnostic tools as well. Family doctors and nurse practitioners are now more aware of these early signs in their patients as well, and they're actively screening cognitively, doing neuroimaging and standardized assessments as well. So yes, we are definitely diagnosing better, but the underlying epidemic is still very real.
And with Canada's aging population, what are the public health implications for this growing burden of dementia?
So I think what we are going to see is essentially a public health emergency. We're going to see an economic impact, which is going to be staggering. So in 2025, which is just this year alone, dementia is estimated to cost Canada over 13 billion annually. By 2050, we're going to see that increase to 27 billion. So that includes hospitalizations, long-term care, home support, and of course, lost productivity as well. Secondly, our healthcare infrastructure right now is under strain. So that's going to certainly worsen as this epidemic continues to build. Third, there is a huge mental health toll. Caregivers, often spouses or adult children, are going to face higher rates of burnout, depression, and financial stress. Already, we see 60% of caregivers feeling quite overwhelmed. Fourth, as we talked about earlier, dementia disproportionately affects women, both as patients and caregivers. Nearly two-thirds of Canadians with dementia are women, but women also make up 70% of informal caregiving in our society. So what we're going to see is huge impacts there throughout for everyone as well. So really, there is going to be a strong need for public education and prevention to really mitigate what this pandemic or epidemic is really going to shape for us.
And are there any effective treatments or interventions that can slow the progress of dementia or improve quality of life for those who are diagnosed?
So dementia remains incurable, but there are certainly evidence-based interventions that can slow its progression and significantly improve quality of life. Medication-wise, in Canada, we use medications like donepezil, rivastigmine, and galamantine. Basically, these medications help boost certain things like acetylcholine, which is a chemical for memory and learning. These drugs, again, don't delay or don't stop the disease. They can just delay symptom worsening. The real power is more in the non-pharmacological interventions. So programs like cognitive stimulation therapy, music therapy, reminiscence therapy have really been shown very helpful in enhancing mood, memory, and social engagement there. And physical exercise is the other cornerstone. Aerobic activity like walking and swimming helps improve that blood flow to the brain, and so it reduces inflammation.
And what do we currently know about prevention? Are there lifestyle changes that can reduce someone's risk to developing dementia?
Yeah, so in Canada, a lot of these risk factors are very relevant. We know that 1 in 4 Canadians over 65 has high blood pressure, and we know that hearing loss affects over 60% of older Canadians, but they don't necessarily use hearing aids. So untreated hearing loss is one of the strongest midlife predictors of dementia, actually. So what can people do? Really 5 key lifestyle changes there. So first is staying physically active, aiming for 150 minutes of moderate aerobic exercise per week. So that's walking, swimming, dancing. Two is engaging your brain. So lifelong learning, puzzles, reading, bilingualism can be very helpful and build the cognitive reserve, as we call it. Three is staying socially connected. So loneliness can be a major risk factor. So regular interaction is very helpful. That can be through friends, but also through volunteering, clubs, or family as well. Four, managing the chronic conditions. So controlling your diabetes, controlling your hypertension, controlling your cholesterol will all reduce that damage to the brain. And then finally, protect your hearing. Use hearing aids if you need it and avoid prolonged exposure to loud noises. That all of these 5 can dramatically reduce your dementia risk.
Well, Dr. Out, thank you so much for breaking that down for us today. We appreciate it.
Thanks so much for having us.